G'day everyone, and welcome to a big Showdown edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you, of course, by CrowCast. Lots to unpack tonight. A bit of a disappointing result for the Crows, but not entirely unexpected. Why don't we cut all the crap and just get right into it, shall we? G'day, and welcome to everyone to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, the Showdown edition. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and who's joined us on YouTube and also even on Twitch. Don't forget you can get around us on Discord at any stage tonight. We've got the live stage going, so if you want to have something to say about the weekend's result, feel free to hop in the voice channel, stick your hand up, and we'll invite you in. There'll be plenty of talk, I imagine. And plenty of talk from my two cohorts. Macca, how are you?
Well, Mother's Day is over, thank Christ. I mean, between Mrs. Macca and I, we've been married before. We've got 5 bloody siblings, or not siblings, children. And, Of course, they've all been here today. And it's ruined my footy watching, something shocking.
Well, shit. So 364 other days you can watch footy, for God's sakes.
Well, they could have had Mother's Day on a Monday or something like that.
And yes, Nikki, how are you?
I'm good, and according to my mother, every day should be Mother's Day.
Every day should be Mother's Day.
Yes. No, I'm quite good. Didn't watch too much football this weekend. I had a few family commitments. There's a lot of birthdays in May, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I had a fairly quiet Mother's Day because my mother's in Queensland. So apart from a phone call, that was my entire commitment, really, which is pretty good. Look, why don't we cut the crap? Don't forget, people, as I said earlier, you can join us on Discord. Just get around the live chat if you want to have something to say. I'm sure there'll be a few people itching for something to say. For those on Discord that were bagging me about my Ford 50 turd last week, I've got a little surprise for you, so you can all get stuffed.
Oh, geez, good stuff.
Macca, and I ran out of time, Macca, to make a nice big intro for you, but I have done some pretty little graphics for you. So why don't we just get straight into Macca's 15 minutes of fame, beloved weekend's result, shall we?
Okay, why don't we? Well, the first game is, you call them out, mate, and I'll answer one by one.
Yes, it's Geelong Cats 19-12-126 defeated Richmond 9-63 by 63 points. That was a little unexpected there, Macca.
It was, and we were talking about it before the game that we thought that Geelong's game style would work against them because they like to kick it around, and it did in the first quarter. Richmond really were in sway and holding sway in the first quarter. But from the second quarter onwards, Geelong started to move the ball a lot quicker. Now, their coach said they didn't, but they bloody well did. Your eyes don't lie. And, they started moving it very quickly. And they've got that 3-pronged forward attack. And, and between them, they've got 15 goals. You've got Cameron 6, you've got Rowan 5 and Hawkins 4. And only one of them's a Geelong product. The rest are stolen from other clubs, but see that as it may.
Where for Hawthorn?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a very, very dangerous forward line. And if they do adopt that approach of getting that ball in quickly with 3 quality forwards like that, they're going to win a lot of games. And maybe they just might be a chance for the flag. I've written them off, but not after that game. No.
Right. The next game. St Kilda, 8 goals, 15-63, just squeaking in by 9 points over the Suns, 7-12-54. The Suns in front for a large part of that game, but couldn't get it done.
Yeah, they basically they've got a reasonably good side now. As I said last week, they've got a lot of good young lads there. Toot Miller's in top form in the middle, as is the skipper. They're doing a pretty good job, but I say St Kilda lucky to get out in the end. Jack Steele was outstanding in the last quarter. Like we really played a captain's knock in the last quarter. Billings was good all day. As you said, in the end, they just did enough to get up, and that's all. St Kilda, there's no premiership chances there.
No premiership chances, you don't reckon, even with the amazing Brad Crouch?
Look, I was going to mention Crouch. I didn't really notice him for a long time, and then I looked at his stats, and he had about 17 disposals, and I thought, well, none of them could have been any good because. And then his efficiency must have been bloody terrible. Look, we lost Crouch. He gets a very good ball getter, but geez, he doesn't use the ball at all well. Not at all well.
No. We then had the Giants, 16-11-107, just even closer, squeaking past Essendon, 16-9-105. 2 points there, the margin. The Giants just hanging in there at the moment, Mac.
Yeah, excellent game actually. Very entertaining game by both teams. And GWS, they've got a very good midfield, as you know, and they all fired. But Essendon, they never gave in at any stage of the game. And with 7 minutes to go, GWS, I thought, made a technical mistake. They were 3 goals, somewhere between 3 and 4 goals up, and they went into their shell and tried to waste time. And if they had made a slip up, Essendon got hold of the ball and charged down and got a goal. And Essendon got 3 goals very, very quickly. And I don't think GWS should make that mistake again. Look, when you're 3 goals up, 3 to 4 goals up, and you're on top, just keep going, I think, rather than just try and 7 minutes out is too far out to try and shut the game down.
I tell you what, too, one on YouTube is just absolutely hooking into you at the moment, Macca. It reckons you sound like Bob Davis.
Well, that's not the kindest thing anybody's ever said.
Oh, no comment. Collingwood 14-10-94 got up over North 11-10-76 by 18 points. Not terribly convincing.
Well, if you're really honest about it, it was 2 shit teams fighting it out, to be honest.
Correct.
And the Pies, they are really in trouble. I mean, they finally did put Darcy Moore at centre-half back, and he had an outstanding game. If they'd persevered with their ridiculous idea of making a forward out of him, then, no way would they have won the game. He was outstanding at the back lines. But, I think Buckley's in major trouble. This side is only just going, and... Grundy, the $1 million man, he's only just going too.
Wow.
Pendlebury's only, Sidebottom, Pendlebury's only just going.
Sacked their list, or what was he, list manager or something, Ned Guy, during the week. So that's probably an admission that they've got their list management strategy completely wrong. So anyway, Melbourne 10-7-67 struggled to get over the line against Sydney, but eventually by 9 points, Sydney 8-10-58.
Yeah, because we had the Showdown on the same time as this particular game, I think, because I only got to see glimpses of this game. But, Melbourne, a very good team, and Swans, as I've always said, they're a team you just can't take lightly because they always have a real crack. And made an outstanding job keeping Buddy goalless. And, no disgrace by Sydney, but Melbourne, I think they're a genuine real deal.
I think so too. Yeah, g'day to True Blue Footy, who's a new joiner on YouTube. Nice to see you. And what have we got here? The Weagles getting over Hawthorn comfortably, 14-14-98 to 8 goals, 12-60, a margin there of 38 points to West Coast. Yes,
only saw glimpses of this over people's bloody shoulders, so I can't comment too much on it. But again, it was really...
God, you're a whinger. Bloody hell.
Well, I like loving I like watching all the games, mate. Anyway, but now to New York, I did see him dominating the rucks, and I saw Gaff always running off with the ball. So I can tell you that much. That's about all I can tell you.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And this afternoon, the Bulldogs coming from behind to win by doing it doggy style, Macca.
Yes, they
coming
did.
from behind, Mac. 16-11-107. Nicky must have gone away because otherwise I would have copped it for saying that.
No, I was just shaking my head.
No, she was wondering what it meant, though.
Oh, now come on, straighten up now. Let's straighten up.
I was going to say I watched the last little bit of that game.
I actually did too, Nicky, until the last quarter. So thank goodness.
Yeah, 16-11-107 to 13-13-91. 16 points in the end. Was it about a 6-goal-1 last quarter by the Dogs?
Kicked seven. Seven goals straight. And their midfield started firing, and once they got on top there, then it was all over. But a couple of comments out of that.
PJ, fantastic.
Can't do it. Well, Cripps is one of the most overrated footballers. He's shot at the moment, I reckon. He had a bit of a rejuvenation. He kicked 5. And
he's not overrated, Mac. He's not overrated. He carries too much in that bloody team. He's a great player. He just carries too much, and he's got shoulders and all sorts of stuff going on there. I feel a bit sorry for Paddy Cripps, actually.
I reckon his shoulders are collapsed, mate, under the weight of it all. He's not playing at the level he was before. Nowhere near it, in my opinion. Yeah, if you have a look at his stats, they're pretty poor. And I did mention Harry Macca at full forward. Yeah, he's a beauty. He got 4.
And the Lions accounting for the Dockers fairly comfortably. 4 goals in the end, 14-11-95 to Freo 10-11-71. 24-point margin there. Brisbane just ticking over.
Yeah, and only just ticking over. Look, I didn't bother to watch that game. I missed out on all the good games, and this was one of the poor ones, so I didn't bother.
Didn't bother? You thought you'd just turn up for Mother's Day?
Yeah. Well, by this stage, we still had some lingerers around the place, so I just thought,
Jesus Christ. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there listening tonight too. It's we're obviously there's not a misogynist amongst us here. Just
not at all. Not at all. I treat her very well.
Yes, of course you do. And g'day to Mrs. Macca, of course, and Mrs. Nicky as well. All right, so the ladder, Mac, sees Melbourne clear on 32 points, the Bulldogs on 28, Port Adelaide on 24, so that's your top 3, and then we've got 3 on 20, Geelong, Sydney and West Coast, Brisbane and Richmond in the 8 on 16, GWS, Freo and St Kilda out of the 8 on 16. Gold Coast, Carlton and the Adelaide Crows on 12, Essendon on 8, along with Collingwood and Hawthorn, and North Melbourne just sewing up Jason Horn nicely at the moment.
I just want to make a comment there. At the end of round 18, normally they say that the 8 is just about set. What do you think?
Yeah, probably I'd swap out Sydney for GWS, I think. But I don't see too many other contenders outside the 8 at the moment. I think Sydney are starting to struggle.
That's the one potential one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Apart from that, I don't think there'll be very massive changes. I think the old rule of round 8 is just about right.
Yeah, I think so. GWS is starting to get their act together. They've won, 4 out of the last 5. Sydney have only won 2 out of the last 5. Sydney have got Collingwood coming up, which should be a win for them. GWS got Richmond, which will be tough. There's a few good games, actually. The Bulldogs-Port game will be a classic, I reckon. That'll be a really good one to watch. Richmond GWS will be interesting. So there's a couple of... I think in the end, the Giants will sneak into the 8 at probably the expense of Sydney. I wouldn't have picked Geelong to be up there, but they just keep on keeping on, don't they?
They do.
Yep. All right.
But who?
Oh, Nikki, you're still here.
I am. Just on that though, who would have thought that last year's grand finalists would be sitting in the bottom half of that 8?
Yeah. I don't know. Look, they came with a rush last season as well, Nick, Richmond.
They did. Mm.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
They did, but I'm just wondering when was the last time that both of the grand finalists were actually.
Well, that's true enough.
Like the year after.
That's true enough. Yeah. I mean, Brizzy's percentage isn't bad, 114. Richmond sort of fair to middling. They'll struggle to Richmond, if they don't get a wriggle on, they'll struggle to make top 4, which will make their title defence pretty difficult. But I just think they're just kicking along at the moment. I don't think Hardwick could be terribly happy with the state of events, but
wow, they're only just chugging.
Yeah. So thanks to everyone on YouTube who's commented on my amazing graphics. Bunch of arseholes. Anyway, why don't we just kick along to the Adelaide game? It was, look, 12-15-87 Port to Adelaide, 5 goals, 8-38. A margin in the end of 49 points. Was probably, I guess, where the
49.
game sat. Beg your pardon?
49 points in Showdown 49.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Juan, for the compliment. So probably where the game sat, I think. We hung in and played very scrappy football with not much method. Port probably didn't make the most of their chances. Could have possibly won by more and probably would have had it been dry, I think. But probably a fair indication of where things sat. Nikki, what do you reckon?
I think it was kind of, we expected that result. And with the injuries that we got early, that didn't help. But what I was pleased to see was we kept the intensity for the majority of the game. We had some issues in that first quarter that got fixed, and we kind of came back in some key stats. So I think there was some positives to come out of it, which that's what we're trying to look for this year.
I think so. Mac, what do you reckon?
Yeah, well, just before the game, even the ball was bounced, I thought we were a little bit short in the back line against their players and a little bit too tall up forward. And then that was exaggerated by the fact of having 2 smalls go down very early in the piece, which meant that we had a very unbalanced forward line. So when you take all that into account, I think that our performance was pretty good. I couldn't quite understand why we had a back pocket half-back flanker as our medical sub either. I thought that was a bit strange.
No, well, we'll get to selection in a moment, Macca. You know the format.
Yeah, I was really talking about that because of the balance of the side.
That's true. I didn't like McPherson there either. Yeah, to be honest.
No, so when the 2 smalls went down, I mean that was vicious. The one that happened to poor old McHenry, that was vicious. He has to get 2 for that. And
that's gone straight to the tribunal, that one. So he can't enter any sort of early plea, and I'd be surprised if he got anything less than 2.
Yep, and but that really did unbalance the forward line, and we just didn't have that. I thought Rowe actually was the only crummer left up there up forward. So I thought it was a good effort actually. I thought we tried so hard in that second and third quarter. We tried so hard, but with little result, and we didn't have the appropriate players in the right place. So I thought effort was good. They were a better side. There's no doubt about that. And given all the handicaps that went against us, I thought it was a reasonably good effort.
Yeah. Losing Murphy and McHenry early basically killed our game plan because from what I could see, without getting too specific right now, it looked like the aim was to just get it forward, and we had enough tools down there to make a contest, and then, sort of crowd the crumb and try to get secondary stoppages or a crumb goal sort of thing. But Rowe was playing a load in hand. I don't think he did too bad a job, but we were just too light on for crummers up forward. We actually, as I'll point out a bit later, we actually changed our approach after quarter time, but to little effect really. So anyway, look, I don't think it was a terribly bad effort. I think I think the effort was certainly there, but gee, we're missing a couple of midfielders, aren't we?
Well, we don't have the quality midfielders that the really good sides have. I think our best midfielders like Ben Keys, you cannot criticise that guy for his effort. He's outstanding with his effort, but he's not at the class level of the other players. And that he doesn't have that extra bit of time for the usage, etc. And that's what we've got missing. Those beasts that can get the ball all the time and create time so they can deliver the ball well. And I think the guys we've got in there, they're busting their guts. But we really do need a smooth moving, classy player in there.
And also, unfortunately, it meant our midfielders had to work more than theirs did because we had to put them up forward. So they would have spent probably more time on ground than what normally would happen, just because we lost those forwards.
Yeah, and got to send a big shout out to the umpires too, because they were shit. They were shit, God. Those umpires. It certainly had nothing to do with the result, but my God, they were inconsistent.
Actually, I suppose that really is the word, inconsistent, because sometimes the holding the ball could be like for a fraction of a second, and sometimes you could be thrown. The other one that really got me, though, was twice we got, and there were so many of them, where players would just sort of scoop the ball off the ground almost two-handed, and it was allowed to go, except for us.
Except for us, we got called. I think Jimmy Rowe got called for one, and there was one or two others, and they were just as. That's right, yeah, and they were just as line ball as Ports. So anyway, look, let's start. Yeah, let's start with selection, because there was a couple of funny ones in selection. We went in, or we dropped. The one that I didn't understand was Nick Murray being omitted. I thought we went in a little small down back. It was a weird selection. I think that they outsmarted themselves, actually, Nicky and Macca, because it seemed to me that they were banking on a wet game, which meant that they thought the ball would spend time on the ground in Port's forward line, and they were banking on our crummers in our forward line. But correct. In the end, it turned out that we were far too top-heavy up forward, and we were probably one tool short down back. And again, I asked the question, Elliot Himmelberg, why isn't he being used a little bit more as a swingman, particularly when we're playing three tools up forward? Doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
I'm in the same camp as you, Feen. That's exactly how I saw it. One short, and Murray probably should have been the guy down there in the first place, but he wasn't. So if he's not there, then, as you said, swing Himmelberg down there because he's got size. But we were definitely two tall up forward, one short down back, and no crummers because they got injured. Yeah.
Look, aside from that, I thought the selections were relatively predictable. The only other one, I think I agree with what you said earlier about Andrew McPherson being the sub. I didn't like that at all. I would have had Jones in as sub, or maybe Haitley, but certainly not Andrew McPherson. He's too one-dimensional, and what would have happened if a midfielder went down? We would have been shuffling the decks pretty well, whereas if we had Chase or Jackson in there, they're a little bit more versatile, can play, small forward or back, or, run through the midfield in a pinch. So, and McPherson doesn't look right. again, I saw him go down. Nick, I don't know whether you noticed this, but I saw him go down on the member's wing and just gasping and clutching at those ribs. I'm sure he's got a rib injury at the moment.
No, I agree with you there. And you think we would have learned to not play somebody who's got a niggle or an injury as the medical sub?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't have a niggle. I really would, because a couple of times he was really struggling to get up. He's struggling to move across the ground, and his kicking at the moment is atrocious because I don't think he's got any explosive power to get any sort of separation. So he's just standing and delivering basically, and his delivery has been pretty average. So, yeah, I think we did ourselves a disservice at selection, and like I said earlier, I think we actually outsmarted ourselves at selection. I think we got a bit too cute, to be honest.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, we got it right. The selection was wrong, as we said, for all the reasons that we have outlined already. And then, just as I said, exaggerated by the fact we lose the two smalls. And the other thing, of course, is we're not at that stage yet where we're skilled under pressure. We've got a lot of players that I think Lockie Scholl was a very good example of that, who is normally a very skillful player, normally uses it very well, but he was one that I thought let himself down with his disposal a lot of the time. I also thought he let himself down a couple of times in the contest.
But we're not talking about individuals, are we, Matt?
No, he's not an individual.
Look, just a reminder, if you're on chat and you want to have something to say, now would be the time to stick your hand up. And very nice to see J Mac, our veteran patron in there. If you do want to support the CrowCast with a couple of bucks, then head along to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast, and any support is greatly appreciated. Right, so let's have a look here. What have I got lined up? Oh, no, we don't want that yet. Yeah, okay. One thing, and it's a pity I don't see Lord Curry for Val in the chat, which is a real shame because, by God, Mac, did he give me a hard time last week with my oval?
He was there earlier.
Is he? Yeah, I can't see because I got the studio up. But if he's there, I'd like to get him to put his hand up because the extravaganza you're about to see, Macca, with this forward 50 analysis is just quite amazing, really, quite amazing. So anyway, without further ado, I did another analysis of our forward 50 entries, and in the first quarter, it was much of the same, Macca. I've just plotted them out here. I don't know whether you're watching the screen or Nikki, if you're watching the screen. But a lot of red zone entries, and more or less all of them ineffective. So we can see that so far two of the first three entries were from around the centre and going to about 40 metres out, and they both came straight out. Our entries in the first quarter are actually quite woeful, to be honest with you. There was no method. Well, three of the five, we only had 5 inside 50 entries from kicks in the first quarter. 3 of them came from centre or behind centre, and 2 of them came from very, very wide. Only 1 resulted in a score, and only 1 resulted in a secondary stoppage, which I think was an out of bounds. So not a lot of efficiency there going forward in our first quarter from the Crows. And you know, for a bit of that first quarter, I felt we were in the game, didn't you?
Well, I did think it because we were actually. I thought we were very, very competitive. As you said, it was just when we did go forward, we just didn't use it very well. They actually had a lot more inside 50s than we did, but I thought we looked fairly solid at that stage. And I thought, could we? But no, it didn't turn out to be. But in that first quarter, it did encourage you enough to think it was going to be a reasonable competition. Hopefully for most of the game, but it certainly was a reasonable competition at that stage.
Yep. Yep.
And I think
Look,
it was that pressure that got to them a bit with those entries, and did continue the whole night. We started to get more entries, but I think they were mostly just as woeful.
yeah, it did change. You'll see a substantial difference as the later on in the game, Nick. It's quite interesting, actually. The second quarter, you'll see that we actually started to get some, that extra possession that I've been talking about. It started to happen a little bit. We were actually entering forward 50 from forward of centre a little bit more often. You can see there the first two entries. One resulted in a snap from a stoppage. The other one was a sort of a run-in shot. But then we kind of fell back to our old tactics again, and everything was short and bombed in high. And you can see there that we just got absolutely no value at all from those short inside 50 attempts. So, a lot of struggle for not much reward, and that seemed to be the theme for the night, Mac. A lot of struggle for not much reward.
Yeah, look, I can't. You've nailed it down very neatly, because too many shallow entries again, or if we went deep, we had no crummers. There was a lot of effort, heaps of effort, and I can't accuse the team of not trying. But as you say, not much result for a lot of effort.
Yeah, PJ makes it. Sorry, go on, Nick.
I was just going to say that you contrast it with the way Port were bringing in the entries, because we were supplying a good amount of pressure on them as well. But their kicks into their forward 50 were always to the advantage of their forward, whereas as
good point,
judged
Nick,
to a spot, but not to where the forward was moving, or if it was the forward had moved, it was always to his opponent. And that's what frustrated me about them.
Yep. Generally speaking, I didn't plot Ports because who could be bothered with that? But from my observation, they were generally a little bit more settled going into forward 50, and they generally had a little bit of separation, and that's because they were using link-up plays a little bit more than we were. There's a couple of things that I'll touch on in a minute, but we'll just run through. So the third quarter, you can see that first one was ridiculous. But as soon as, it stands up, as soon as we get an entry from the green zone into the green zone, we get a scoring opportunity. It just about in every one that we get from forward of centre and into the sort of forward 35, it results in something, whether it's a scoring opportunity or a secondary shot, a secondary stoppage. Something happens, but whenever we go in short, or we go in from too deep, and so the ball sits on someone's head at 40 metres out, just nothing. So you can see there, we had, in the third quarter, we had 13 entries from disposals rather than just run in, and you can see that the majority of the ones that went deep into the 35 we had 4 scoring shots as a result, 1 secondary, and only 2 came back out. So the whole thing stands up. And again, going in from so deep or so wide, we had 4 entries from the outer wing that were just completely ineffective. And I remember watching the video, and they're just sitting on people's heads, and you'll see from a little bit of footage that I've cut up after this that there was no method to it whatsoever. The last quarter was probably our most effective in terms of our forward 50 entries. We were coming in from far closer to the forward 50. I don't think we actually had any from the red zone in the last quarter, and you can see that we were going in far deeper in that last quarter. And in terms of output, our the result for effort was a lot better, even though we only had 7 inside 50s from disposals in that last quarter. 6 of them stuck. They either resulted in scoring opportunities or secondary stoppages, and of course 2 of those were almost Riley Thilthorpe marks. In fact, one of them I thought could have been paid. Actually, the last one. But so we were far more effective in that last quarter, and so I'm going to keep tracking this because I think it stands up. The more we use that second possession or that one more link in the chain, the more effective our forward 50 entries are. And I'll just flick to a bit of video if I can work out my little buttons here. All right. So this is the first quarter, and this is the first 2 or 3 forward 50 entries, and you can see that they're all banged in from the centre, and we mustn't have been expecting them because the only people that were actually there were Port players. Bang, bang, bang into the forward 50. Not a lot of show for effort there.
One of the problems with that, we actually were playing an extra players on the ball, which means we were always a forward light, which is one of the problems we had. So the minute we banged it in there, we were one player down automatically. And
but the thing is, Mac, we had 3 talls, and those midfielders, once we start banging the ball in, they should have been rushing into the forward line to provide a crumb.
Not arguing with you, I'm just saying they don't. And that's one of the reasons why we were short.
Yeah. So this one here, this is in the second quarter, and this is probably the first time we've actually tried to chain it into the forward line. Himmelberg, who a lot of people bagged again this week, but I thought he was very good below his knees this week, giving off the handball, and another handball to Berry, who, unfortunately couldn't finish it off, as is the case with him at the moment. You can see this one here from Harry. There's just no point to this kick. He's kicking it from sort of centre wing, and it's just bombing in. And have a look at the pack here. Who's there? I don't know whether you guys are watching it, but have a look at that. We've got Riley Thilthorpe at the front, we've got Himmelberg behind, and we've got Tex jumping over the top. What is the bloody point in that?
None.
But I'll tell you why that happens, Macca. And I went and watched Cam's country footy game on Saturday during the day. He wasn't playing, but we sat in the outer and we were watching. And it was a classic case of one team that were willing to spread the ball and another team that were going up and down the line. And Adelaide were playing single lane football all night until the last quarter, really. And what happens when you're playing single lane football is that your forwards bunch up. And this, what I've freeze framed on the screen right there, is exactly the outcome you get when you don't spread the ball.
Well, that's one of my greatest things I harp on every week, that our forwards just don't spread. And if you ever want to get a back line into trouble and they start to panic, is when you've got forwards all over the place and you leave them one-on-one. Even Elliot, he panics when he's one-on-one. And
but Macca, it's not the forwards' fault for not spreading.
No,
it's not the forwards' fault.
No, and you're right. Port Adelaide did it differently. They brought it in from all different angles, and that helped them to isolate it. And at least, as 100%. Nicky said before, they could kick it to the advantage of their player, whereas we're just kicking it to a mass. And you're right. Yep. If you do that straight down the guts thing and without any variation, well, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, a forward is a forward, and they're going to run to the drop of the ball. But when you're playing one lane football, there's only a very small space that the opposition have to defend because it's coming straight at them, right? Whereas if the ball's being spread, which is what Port Adelaide did quite well and which GWS did the previous week as well, is getting that separation and changing lanes. If you imagine the oval being 3 lanes, 2 wings and the corridor, changing lanes allows the forwards to get separation from their opponent. It confuses the defence and it provides more one-on-one contests. But if you're playing up and down a single lane like we did for large parts of the game, this is the outcome. Anyway, I'll keep going.
And just on that, and the reason what Port were doing is they were also then chipping it around that top of the 50 up, or
100%, Nick.
And till they could get that separation happening, and that relies on a midfield working hard.
Yes, 100%, Nick.
That's what we don't
good
get.
Point.
100%. Well, I mean, look, it hurt us that we lost Murphy and McHenry because it gave us fewer options, and obviously the boys fatigued, etc., etc. But this is fairly early on in the game, and it was happening in the first quarter before those two lads went down. So, and it's something that we were doing very well in the first couple of weeks is using chains and try to spread the ball wide. When we do change lanes, it's very slow. There's no aggression with our ball movement. When we do, we seem very hesitant and have gone back into our shells. So it's hopefully something that Nixie and the boys will work on. I'll just keep running through here. See, this one here, that's perfect. You can see Tilthorpe has got the ball at true centre-half forward or just ahead of centre-half forward. Now, in many cases, he would have our players would have just gone back and thumped it forward. But he's gone wide and he's changed lanes and found that outside player as a result. And it actually results, if Scholl had actually hit that properly, he should have actually kicked it over Elia's head straight into Himmelberg's lap. But he tried to hit up short, and as a consequence, it bounced out. But you can see the separation there in our forward line compared to the previous one, where it's all one-on-one contests. There's our forwards have got separation from their opponents, and it was purely just a bad kick from Scholl that cost us from having a shot at goal in that particular one. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is another one. Paul Seedsman, and we'll go through individuals in a minute. He got another excellent. He had an excellent game in terms of disposals and meters gained and all the rest of it. But there's two sides to Paul Seedsman, and this is the bad side because you see he gets the give, and unfortunately it's just a bit out of frame there. But you can see the space, and I wish I had a little marker there, but you can see the space at the 45-degree angle, about 70 metres out. And there's a couple of blokes in there that should be running into that space for the short. But instead, there's not, and Seedsman hits the ball into basically a dead zone, 50 metres out. And if it wasn't for Rose Academy Award, we wouldn't have even got a free. It would have just been out of bounds. So that's the bad Seedsman, and that's probably 50% of his disposals, I reckon. He does not hit up short targets. And to be fair to him on that occasion, there wasn't a short target for him to hit up. This next one again from Hamill, the absolutely pointless kick. There's no one there, and he's expecting Tex starting from 7 or 8 metres behind Cleary to outrun him into the forward line. Instead, he could have actually held onto the ball and allowed Tex to do a double lead and hit him up on the inside. Just a wasteful effort when we had the run of the play and an open forward 50.
I remember being very frustrated at that one. And that's what Tex was actually doing really well at the start of the season. And I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit, is that we are rushing those entries in.
Yep.
But I think the thing is also, I didn't want to say it because I was thinking it, but I didn't want to individualise thing. But your comments about Seedsman in particular, I thought he was the main culprit in that bombing into that because he's, as you said, excellent at getting the ball, excellent in terms of the distance gain, but useless where the ball was directed.
Yep, 100%, Mac. Here's another one from Seed, and you can see on the left, he's actually looked for someone and kicked it to Texas' advantage. And it's gone deeper into it. Rather than kicking it from behind centre and getting it to 45 metres out, they've actually run through the middle and kicked it to a hotter zone, the 35 metres out, and he's actually kicked it to Tex's advantage. And as a consequence, Riley gets his first goal after a good handball from Tex. So that's the difference. That's the good seedsman. So here's another one here. And this is great attack on the ball from Fogarty. But we had some runners. So you can see here we've got Sloaney to the left, we've got Seaman on the outside, and I think that's Schoenberg ahead. And there's no Port players in a defensive position at the moment. So rather than kick the ball, Rowe's done the right thing by seeking out the handball, and we've been able to chain it. And Seaman again has kicked it to the advantage of Tilthorpe. So Seaman had one of those games, didn't he, where he got a lot of the ball. He's definitely our link player at the moment, but when he looks for somebody, he's very good, but often he doesn't.
Oh, well, yeah,
here's another one.
About 50% of the time, as you say.
Yeah. So there's only a couple left. Here's one with Sloaney, and again, the handball to Seaman, and I think he just got pushed as he kicked it. Otherwise, that would have been another good pass. So, 3 good efforts from Seaman, and you could see, we'll have a look at his inside 50 stats in a minute, but he was quite good there. So, and then we're back into the bomb, and you can see the difference. There's 2-1 Port. It's not kicked to the advantage of Tilthorpe, and, it just gets let away. Now, this was probably, I reckon, our best passage of play for the night, because most of the night, this is in the last quarter, I think, most of the night we would have got the ball from here and kicked it in long. But you can see that this is an example of changing lanes. Rather than kicking it down to that half-forward line, Mac, we've gone inside. Brodie Smith's hit up a target. But again, instead of just turning around and bombing it in from there, which we did for a lot of the night, again, we changed lanes again. So Seedsman, again, has got the ball, and not the right kick, in my opinion. He was probably having a shot for goal. Tex did the right thing by trying to clear space for Tilthorpe. But it was just the method that we went in was far better when we were chaining handballs rather than just bombing it from behind centre.
Because once you start running it in with a chain of handballs, the defenders they're at a loss because they're not sure when it's going to be kicked and where it's going to be kicked to. But once you start running forward and they can see you're going to bomb it, they've got plenty of time to get set.
Well, they know where the ball's going to go, and as I said, it's a far smaller area to defend when you know where the ball's going to go. It's when there's separation and width up ahead of you that a defender doesn't know whether it's going to go left or right. The forward's always got the advantage in that situation. Here's another good chain with Macca getting off a good handball. And again, going wide there. Now, Sloaney probably should have had someone hitting up there. And I don't know why Tex was leading into the middle of the ground instead of straight at Rory in that one. But anyway. But again, another example of changing lanes to get separation. I'm not sure whether that's the last one. Oh, one more. Again, you can see they're changing lanes and then cutting back through the middle. And again, probably not the right kick going in. But at least it was giving ourselves an opportunity. So, look, it wasn't terrible after quarter time, but you can certainly see the difference between when we move the ball well into our forward 50 and when we kick the ball in from behind centre. And I must admit, I don't remember Port Adelaide hitting up many forward 50 entries from behind centre. Do you guys?
No, they tend to move the ball around, sideways, backwards, and all around the place. And try and keep possession of it until they get that opportunity, as Nicky said before, to kick it to the advantage of their forward and give the forward a real chance to run on it and grab it rather than being in a pack. Because once you move the ball around and change directions, all of a sudden it puts this defender at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah,
And
100%.
Port did it. We didn't. We did it a couple of times, as you've illustrated, but not enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
And it's that they do that around the 50, whereas we often, that's where we're trying to keep up sometimes.
Yeah.
Our forwards.
Yeah. And trying to hit up a 60-metre pass to a leading forward is just impossible, particularly in those conditions. So, anyway, look, let's move on from that, and I'll just bring up the head-to-head stats here, and we can have a look at those. So, disposals, we were heavily out-disposed by Port, 418 to 322 disposals, nearly 60 more kicks and about 36 more handballs. So disposal efficiency was down from both teams, obviously because of the weather, but Port had it far more often than what we did. We struggled. I think at one stage we only had like about 33% of the play for one of those quarters. Efficiency inside 50, as you can see, and this is what we've just illustrated. Port 30 shots from 63 inside 50s. We had 13 shots from 49 inside 50s. And, we don't need to keep spending time on that stat because it was self-evident, really. 27% efficiency inside 50 is just woeful. And look, Mac and Nikki, if it was the coaches' strategy to set up that way and to kick in long, even notwithstanding the fact that we lost 2 crummers, hopefully that stat there shows them that it's not the way to go.
I think common sense tells you it's not the way to go. Since time immemorial, it's not the way to go. And so it just, and I know we had a huge disadvantage because we didn't have the crummers, but there's still, as you say, they've got to move the ball around a little bit before they bring it in, rather than straight down the guts all the time and do the long bomb to the group. Yeah, no argument.
Just to those on YouTube, the Restream bot actually feeds the chat from Discord into YouTube so you guys can see what's going on. So that's why it bobs up so often. Free kicks, 18 to 21 in Adelaide's favour. That shocks me. But 39 free kicks on a slippery night isn't a hell of a lot. And I reckon they missed a hell of a lot, to be perfectly honest with you.
Definitely.
I would have thought, they could have gone. When it's wet like that, there are a lot of errors made in terms of tackles, etc. So there really should have been a lot more. But the other thing is that, as I said, I got so angry about the fact we went for handball scoop type thing, and they were throwing it, doing whatever they like, and never got pinged. We are not an umpire's favourite team.
No, not at the moment. Stoppages, 42 to 32. I thought Rob got destroyed by Lysett.
Smashed.
Clearances, 44 to 38. 11 to 7 in the centre and 33 to 31 around stoppage. We kind of cleaned it up at around stoppage after quarter time. Their clearances were far more effective than ours, and I ran out of time. I was going to do a little bit of work on effective clearances, but our clearances, by and large, were ineffective. They were just hat kicks to nowhere, or, whereas they were actually setting up play from a lot of their stoppage clearances. So not only did they win that stat, but they were far more effective with it.
It was give it to Lairdy so we can kick it straight up in the air almost under immense pressure.
Pretty much.
Whereas theirs was actually a loose player out the back who had time and space.
Yes, 100%, Nick, 100%. Possessions. Go on, Mac.
No, sorry. I was just going to say that particular structure that Nikki quite rightly pointed out. We have been vulnerable to that particular structure from time immemorial. I mean, even when we were a good side, we'd still allow somebody around out the back there on their own, and they'd just clear it. So it's at the moment it's even more exaggerated because we're not a good side.
That's right. Possessions, contested possessions, 170 to 159 in Port's favour. They certainly won ground ball. Uncontested possessions, 235 to 145, shows just how difficult it was for us to actually get our hands on it. And when we did get our hands on it, we turned it over a bit, 91 to 81. You can see the possession heat map there as well, showing that, the previous week we were pushed back quite heavily. That wasn't the case. There was a lot of play played between the arcs. And I felt overall our defence held up pretty well, considering. But it just shows that we were ineffective trying to get the ball forward. Port were able to bounce off their half-back line, and you can see a lot of possession there across half-back for Port, because that's where our entries were going. First quarter. Sorry, go on, Nick.
I was just going to say that essentially you're right. I thought our defence did hold up pretty well when you consider the amount of pressure they were on constantly. There was no respite for them. No respite. It was just coming in so often. Yeah. And often delivered pretty well. So given that, they've all probably had bad moments, but they overall, I thought they really fought it out pretty well.
Yeah, agreed, mate. And you can see as I flick through the quarters on that heat map, how in the first quarter we struggled and we were getting a lot of ball in our back half. But after quarter time, in general play, we were amongst it. There's a lot of ball around the centre of the ground. It was just our forward 50s. Have a look at that last quarter there and see how bunched those forward 50 entries are. It's quite unbelievable. So for the match, time in possession, 48% to Port, 33% tells the tale of the tape, really. We just couldn't get our hands on it. Marks, 84 to 46, which is reflective, I guess, of their uncontested possession count. Marks inside 50, though, given that we went in with a tall forward line, 12 to 2. And they weren't all big contested marks. Charlie took a couple, but a lot of them were passes to advantage in those 12 marks inside 50.
They were lead ups. Straight at the kicker.
Yep. They beat us in the air comprehensively, 13 to 5 contested marks, 91 to 81 intercepts. We didn't spend any time in front. Tackles, 85 to 76, not good enough. And again, a very low inside 50 tackle count, not helped by Murphy and McHenry being off the ground for the majority of the game. But, blokes just have to stand up in those circumstances, and the ball just came out of our forward 50 far too easily. So that's the head-to-head stats. It pretty much tells the story, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does, because they just had more of the ball. They used it better, and that's probably sums it up very nicely.
That's what it boils down to. Yeah. Now we've got a
style of play.
Yes. Now we've got a few people in the live audience there. If any of you want to come on and have something to say, you're quite welcome to. Don't wait for a break in the show. Just stick your hand up and I'll slot you in when we've got a moment. Happy to have anyone who wants to share their opinions to get on and have something to say. Let's have a look at some individuals while we're waiting for someone who might want to come in. Look, I personally thought Laird was probably our best overall. Not so much for effectiveness, but just for work rate. I felt like he was our hardest working, most consistent player over 4 quarters.
Well, yeah, he was certainly one of 3, and they all had their pluses and they all had their minuses, because I'd throw in as candidates alongside Laird, and I'm not saying it wasn't Laird, but you'd have to throw Keys and Seaman alongside him, and
100%.
And then people would argue that one of them was, some might argue it was Seaman, some might say it was Keys, and some might say it was Laird. And they're all probably right, because, opinion is an individual thing, Well, I'd be happy if it was Laird, I'd be happy if it was Seaman, and I'd be happy if it was Keys, because I thought they were the 3, and I found it very hard to split them.
Yeah. Now, J&M on the YouTube chat has asked if we have a phone number to call. If you could see the state of my desk at the moment with phones and cords and shit going everywhere, there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to have a phone as well. The way to get on and have a chat, as 1990 is about to do, is to get onto our Discord server and join the live studio. And we've got a voice channel there, so if you're listening in on a phone, you can come straight in. And speaking of coming straight in, 1990 Crow, how you going?
Good, Feenix. How you going? How you going, Macca and Nikki?
Good to see you come on, mate. What do you got to tell us?
Not a lot. Just the one point I just wanted to call up to have a chat to you guys about was just the fact that we seem to be playing a lot of injured players at the moment, and it seems to be pretty consistent with the way that our club has managed playing players when they've got little niggles and or sort of long-term niggles. It seems to have happened for as long as I can remember, and it's not just the senior blokes that they're doing it to this season. I've noticed they seem to be saying, "Oh, we need to get our young guys to learn to play with niggles because that's what they value at the club." I remember there was an interview. I can't remember who it was. Might have been 3 or 4 weeks ago, where they said, "Oh, we've got quite a few young guys carrying injuries, but that's good that they're learning how to do that." And that's
I remember the comment.
I'm just completely when I heard that, I just got quite annoyed because that's just we're in a rebuild at the moment, and we need to be managing these guys. We've got 5 or 6 guys in the SANFL that could be given a go, and playing people like McPherson, who are clearly injured, is not helping.
Yeah, couldn't understand the McPherson selection at all. 1990. It just did it from a team balance point of view, but also from the fact that he's out of form and obviously struggling with some sort of injury. I just didn't get it. Chase is starting to come on. He had 30 touches in the sample, I believe. So probably good to get that 4-quarter run. But I felt we probably could have played Worrell instead of DMAC in the starting lineup and had DMAC as the medical sub. Because at least with DMAC you're going to get some run and effort, which is quite valuable late in games. So I think they outsmarted themselves, mate. I don't think they got that one right at all.
And
the other point,
all you have to do is look at Brown's performance. Now, we absolutely slammed Brown the Hawthorn game quite rightly because he seemed to be playing injured and he just couldn't do anything. They gave him that little bit of time off. He got himself right. He came back in, and that was the Brown of old.
Oh, he played a very good game, actually. Yeah,
that's a good point. Thunder, Nikki.
Sorry.
That was going to be the thing I was going to say. Brown was looking quite poor compared to his usual standard prior to his injury as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he'd been carrying something as well. And he's come back in this week and he was back to his best. And other example, Travis Boat had a week off last week and comes in and wins the Showdown medal.
Well, I think you raised an excellent argument, 1990, and there's no argument, and there's no way that you're incorrect either. The only thing I will say about this, I don't believe we're the only club that does it.
For sure.
And that's, the clubs persist in trying to play injured players, saying, he's about 90% fit. He'll be all right. But he won't be all right. You're not going to get 100% out of him. And we are one of the ones that are very guilty. I think most clubs do it. Every time they do it, they pay the price generally. So your point is an excellent point. It's a valid point. And I would think the club would be much better off if they, and we're talking about the Crows here, if they only played players when they were 100% right. I mean, I can understand if they got a little niggle and only a minor one, but we're playing with, look like they're playing with major niggles. And and that will always...
The reason it annoys me so much is that this rebuild is going to take at least 2 or 3 more seasons to get the quantity of games that we need into the guys that have got between 0 and 20 games currently, who are going to be the key pillars of our rebound back into finals contention. and we need to get as many games into them, quality games, not just games where they're sort of just
Yeah,
jogging
100%.
around and only getting sort of half of what they could be doing because they're not getting confidence out of it.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, an excellent call, 9090. You've done well, mate.
Yeah, you get the Sammy's meat voucher so far, 1990. You're the you're the front runner, the best of one so far. But no, look, we do appreciate you coming on, mate. You got anything else before I kick you out?
Not really. I just think it'd be good to see a few of the young guys get a go next week. You know, O'Connor,
100%.
good. Jones, Worrell was a little bit down, but you know he's been up for 5 or 6 weeks, so I would still like to see him get another go.
Yeah.
The only comment I'd like to make about that meat voucher is a mythical meat voucher, Fiend should have said.
Macca's not giving up any of his prizes ever.
Maybe it's a vegan. I'm a part-time vegan.
Yeah, no, we might get one of Macca's letterboxes and give that away.
Oh, plenty of people have done that.
He's lost that. I don't know how he's going to give it to me.
Yeah. All right, mate. Look, thanks for coming on. Always great to have a chat. Good on you, mate. Thanks for your support.
See you guys.
See ya.
It's just that easy, isn't it, Nicky and Macca? If you got something to say, a bit dark at 1990 because he makes a bit of sense. And as I've said previously, that makes us look like shit. So just relax, 1990. Just, you know.
But to be fair, how many years have we been doing this, Feen, and we make ourselves look like shit on a regular basis? So.
And people keep listening, idiots. Anyway, let's get back to some individuals. So Letty had 36 touches, 16 kicks, 20 handballs, 5 tackles, a lot of work through the middle of the ground, as you can see there with the tracker. Disposal efficiency a little bit down, but I reckon that would have been probably across the board that people would have been down. 21 contested possessions, though, is excellent. I thought his work rate was excellent. He only turned it over 5 times out of all of that. 6 intercept possessions, only 6 score involvements, but we didn't have a lot of scores, so that's not too bad. Didn't take a mark. 27 pressure acts and 341 metres gained with 6 clearances and 5 tackles. So, I don't know. We had a lot of tries, and I think, in my opinion anyway, Lairdy tried the hardest for longest, if that makes sense.
And I can remember, one of the reasons about some of his efficiency disposal was the fact that a lot of his possessions in the centre, as you said, they were contested and possession, and he had people all over him. So the very fact that he got a kick away with it was very, very well done by him. So
100%.
Yeah, it is just going to be very hard to beat him when you think about it. Because he did get a lot of hard ball.
Yeah. Let's have a look at Seed because he did a lot right. 29 disposals, including 22 kicks, which is what you want from your distributor. 7 handballs, 4 marks, 2 tackles, kicked a point. And you can see there from the heat map, just everything across that wing. He was very much our link man. And that's going to be found out pretty soon. Someone's going to start sitting on him shortly. Played pretty much 50-50 across the ground. Only 52% disposal efficiency, though, and that's the key, isn't it? That's what we've been talking a little bit about tonight. 11 contested possessions, 18 uncontested, 9 turnovers, 6 score involvements, 1 contested, 3 uncontested mark, 20 pressure acts, 817 metres gained is excellent if you use the ball well. 5 stoppage clearances. He was a bit of an outlet man in around stoppage, which was good. 9 inside 50s, which is excellent. He's in a good patch of form, Seed. I don't want to bang on about it, but I'd just like to see him use the ball better, more consistently.
Can't argue with any of that.
Just watching the game, at the end of it, I actually thought he was our best player because you noticed him a lot more. And you're right, we're getting that consistency for him. This is what now, 4 or 5 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
And that's great. And I think they are trying to sit on him, but he seems to have found a way to work around that, which is another really nice step forward for him. I can't believe that the the Laird one, that he didn't have as many turnovers. I think they don't count it if it goes up and it just becomes another stoppage. Because that's essentially what happened with a lot of Lairds. So whilst those stats actually look great, I didn't think he was as effective, even though, yes, we got burnt by some of Seedsman's disposals. I just felt that Seed was more effective in being proactive.
Yep.
And for me, I would have Seed ahead of Laird, but that's just
ahead
my
of Laird.
personal opinion.
Yeah. No, that's quite all right. Couple of others that we'll touch on. Benny Keys, won't spend too long on these. 20 touches, 11 and 9. 8 tackles, though. I think he had 7 tackles up until half-time. Disposal efficiency down. It's something that he's got to continue to work on. 15 contested possessions, only 3 uncontested possessions. And Macca, I know we love Benny Keys because he goes in and gets the ball, but I think Ben's got to actually learn what to do when he doesn't have the ball in open play, because he's one of the blokes that we need to be making those little diagonal 45-metre options, in my opinion.
It's a very good point, Feen. Very good point, because he's building himself a game, and that's something he's got to add to his game if he wants to go to another level again.
Yep. But you can't fault his effort.
And I'll just say that Keys needs to learn that he's not the one that does the half a metre handball to Letty, who has a player directly on him, and make Letty do the kick.
5 turnovers from Ben, 3 score involvements, couple of marks, 33 pressure acts, which is what we've come to expect from him. 6 clearances, 8 tackles, as I mentioned, 2 inside 50s. So he does a lot of work between the arcs. Obviously his disposal and just his. I'd like to see him get a little bit more ball on the outside and providing that option. But always 100% effort from Ben. Quickly on Sloaney, I thought it wasn't a bad return. Copped a knock too, which was a bit of a worry early on. 20 disposals, 13 and 7, 10 tackles, 1 goal, 2. Played forward and back, not a lot of midfield output. 60% disposal efficiency, 9 contested possessions, kicked a goal and had 6 score involvements, 4 marks, including that one in the last quarter up front, which was good. 30 pressure acts, 284 metres gained, 3 stoppage clearances. Not a bad return, really. He's been out a few weeks. Not a bad return straight back into the team on a night like that.
He was my third best ahead of Keys.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, Nicky. There wasn't a great margin between our best players, and I thought that, probably right in reflection that he may well have been ahead of Keys, because he hadn't played for about 3-4 games he's missed. And to come straight back into a really tough game like that, and a cop a nasty knock right near his eye as he did, but he's an amazing guy. There's not much of him, but geez, he's tough. I liked his game, actually. Yeah.
Now, a couple of tweeners I want to touch on, if you don't mind. Harry Schoenberg took a bit of a step, I felt. He was amongst it a little bit more, probably forced to play a few more midfield minutes. And particularly in the second quarter, I thought it was really good. And then a few good touches in the last. He had 19 disposals, 10 and 9, 5 tackles, 63% disposal efficiency, but 13 contested possessions is really good for Harry. Turn it over a little bit. 2 score involvements, 17 pressure acts, 239 metres gained, but he had the 4 stoppage clearances, 4 inside 50s. I just felt like he was a little bit more noticeable during the course of the match and was playing a little bit more through the midfield this week.
Yeah, and he's a young player learning his trade, and I thought, given the fact that this is a real pressure game and against a very good side, I thought his performance wasn't too bad. Somebody pointed out there was a ridiculous one where he handballed the ball back into play.
That was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one bad one.
It was an absolute howler, that one.
Because they get a goal out of it.
Yeah. But, Harry's he's learning, and he's learning in the big league, and I think he is taking some steps forward, Feen. He's starting to get a little bit more of the ball each game he plays, and to get the number of touches he did in this particular game, I think it was a reasonable effort.
Yeah, and as we talked about in the chat on the night, he got tired and he went missing, and I think that's when we needed him around still a bit, and that's just him getting that tank up to speed as he needs to spend more time in the midfield. But when he was in there, some of those clearances were really nice, and I liked who they were playing him on as well on Port. They they put him on wines. At one stage he was a little bit with Boak, but I think they kept Berry more on him. So it was great to actually them to say, this is what you need to be playing like. This is who you need to be following and learn from. So that's what I was really pleased to see.
Yeah, there's no doubt he needs a tank, Harry. He's a long way off it in terms of being able to run out a full game in the midfield. But if we can get little cameos like that and also get some output up forward, I think for this season, while he works on his fitness, I think that'll be a good outcome. Now, Darcy Fogarty, 10 disposals, 6 kicks, 4 handballs, 3 tackles, kicked a goal, which was Thilthorpe's goal, really. 80% disposal efficiency, 6 contested possessions, 3 turnovers, which seems rather high when he's gone 80% disposal efficiency. I don't think these stats are ever right. 3 score involvements, only 8 pressure acts, only 163 metres gained, 1 centre clearance. How'd you see it?
He's a bit of a conundrum what to do with him, really. I think that he had 12 disposals. That's probably good for him because he's generally less than that. He's got ability, but to me, he really is a forward, and we've got this problem with the forward line that you can only have so many players there, and he doesn't get a lot of it. If they're going to persevere with him in the middle, so be it. But they must get a lot more weight off him if he's going to stay in the middle, because he is still carrying plenty of weight, and that means if you've got plenty of weight, you can't run the game out properly as a mid. So
he's not carrying excessive weight, Macca. He's not. It's a furphy what you keep going on about. Absolute furphy.
Well, he doesn't run a lot.
No, but that's got nothing to do with... He's not carrying... Like, if you're talking about him not being fit, that's not the case.
What I'm saying is he's not fit enough to be a midfielder because he doesn't run enough.
Is that fitness? Is that fitness, or is that the fact that he hasn't got enough pace, or is it the fact that he ball watches, or is it just the sheer fact that he is not a midfielder?
It might be that he's just not a midfielder. It's worthy of a try, but in the end, it may well prove that he's not a midfielder. But he is very, very heavy in the league, so there's those still playing. And
we wouldn't play Tex. We wouldn't play Tex. We wouldn't. No. I'm not like you keep implying that he's overweight and unfit, and that's simply not the case. I'm not saying that he's not heavy in the legs and all the rest of it. That's evident, but it's not because he's not fit. He's stripped very fit this year. It's just his body, and I'm going along with what I keep saying time and time again. He's not a midfielder. He's a forward, and we're either going to waste him or we're going to have a look at Tex's performance over the last 2 or 3 weeks and say, Tex, you need a rest, and we need to see what Darcy's got. And he's a lead-up forward, and that is bloody that.
What I'll say, though, for this week, he was a lot more involved.
Definitely.
I thought it was it was a good step forward for him with the way that he was being used. And I thought his movement up forward was actually quite good. He was one of the few that doesn't fly when the others do. and will actually stay down. And I thought some of his work around the stoppage was actually quite good. He was still getting that little bit caught and was trying to bullock his way through, but I think we needed that bigger body in there at times. But you're right. There are some issues at AFL level for him as a midfielder.
Yeah.
And if you want a big body, then there's Ronan O'Connor, who is a midfielder.
Exactly. 100%, Nick. The thing that shows me that, not that I needed any proof, but another example of why Darcy Fogarty is a brute of a lead up forward was the attack of the ball that he put.
Houston.
No, not that one. The one that I showed on the video.
One.
I think it was in the third quarter where he's straight lined the ball, taken the body, got his arms free, given off a handball, and it's ended up being Riley Tilthorpe's mark from Seaman. That's what Darcy Fogarty can do on the lead. He can hit up hard, he can take a body, he can take someone out of the play, and he can get his arms free and dish off if he doesn't mark. He is a bloody lead up forward, and I'm sick to frickin' death with seeing the poor kid being forced to play in every other position except the one that he's supposed to be playing, simply because Tex will not give in.
Well, that is the problem. That you're really going back to the core of the problem now. Why they're trying to reinvent him elsewhere? Because for the very point you just made, it is basically if we're going to plan for the future and for the next 3-4 years, Tex is not in it. And
he's not.
And we said that at the end of last year that
correct.
If we're going to plan for the long-term future, we really don't play Tex this year. Now, Tex has had a great start to the year and all the rest of it, but it really isn't part of the long-term future.
No. And, it was all very nice for Tex to have that good run early when the game was pretty much set up for him. But we're back to playing AFL football now. Everyone's recalibrated with these new rules. There's not those free lanes to run into anymore. We're not moving the ball as well because exactly, Nikki. Coaches aren't idiots. They weren't going to let 15 to 13 goal games happen. It just never going to happen. Never will happen. They got shit for brains if they think they're going to open the game up like that. So we're back to AFL football, and Tex has shown over the last couple of years that he does not have the agility or the flexibility to be able to play at this level anymore. And it was a lovely little cameo to see the Tex of old in the first couple of games, but we need to be thinking about the future. And Macca, what you said is 100% right. Tex is not part of our next premiership team, and if he really is a club man, Tex, he needs to recognise that there's a young lad that's getting absolutely wasted as a result of Tex continually putting his hand up when he's not 100% fit.
And sadly, only putting up one hand when he's going for the mark as well.
100%.
So,
anyway.
We can see it, and I think we've called it many times, but it's up to the club, but I don't think they're going to do it, Feen.
Well, it'll be to their detriment, and I would hate to see Darcy strip for another club and play his rightful position and start toweling people up.
It'd be vomit time. Yeah, that would be vomit time.
Yeah. Of the rest, as you mentioned, Lukey Brown I thought was pretty good. I thought Jake Kelly played all right. Played his role pretty well. Tom Duday was a bit up and down. Jimmy Rowe was probably the other one who tried really hard. Certainly a better effort from Jimmy Rowe than has been the case over the previous couple of weeks. But we need to see that from Rowe away from home. So next week in Perth is going to be a real test. I thought Will Hamill provided some bounce off halfback as well. He's not always tidy with ball in hand, but he read the play really well. He was sitting off the back of packs when the ball was coming in high and got a couple of nice crumbs over the back to be able to feed the ball forward. And I didn't think it was a bad game from Will Hamill.
No, reasonably good game, actually. He's got plenty of pace, and he certainly, although he's a little bit light, he's certainly not frightened to go in. And no, I thought he had a pretty good game. and he's got a pretty good future. My only one concern about him is he got a little bit of a knock around the head, and he's had a couple of concussions. So I worry about him that if he gets hit in the head.
And that was a sling tackle that should have been paid, which then meant that gave Lycett free rein to go, well, they're not paying it, so I'm going to go back to doing what I like to do. So that's on the umpires.
And it certainly stunned. It stunned him, and I was actually very surprised and very glad to see him come back on, because I actually thought that was going to be him done.
Agree. And we're quite conservative with him because of those. Yeah.
Surfsize in the chat makes an excellent point. He needs to hit the weights. He needs core strength. He needs neck strength. They really, because he gets ragdolled. And you can see when another player, there was another player, I think it was Sam Berry, got rolled by Lycett later on in the game. And the difference between, I know Berry's a bigger lad, but the difference between the two is that Berry was able to brace his neck and keep his head up off the ground when he got rolled, whereas Hamill flops around like a rag doll. And he's just going to be prone to those whiplash events until he builds some strength up around his shoulders and his neck, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. That is my only concern with him, because I think he's got a very good future in terms of ability and pace. And when he's really on top of his game, he also uses the ball pretty well. Not in a game like on the weekend where it's so much pressure where you don't get that opportunity or time. But normally on a dry day and when he's running with the ball, he does use the ball pretty well. And he's got excellent pace. So, but that's my one fear about him, is the knocks in the head.
Yeah. Couple of interesting comments on the YouTube chat. Dr. Silkman there, Texas treated like a godfather at the Crows. Not going to disagree with that. And True Blue Footy saying that Lycett is a flog. I think you get a unanimous agreement with that one. He really is a flog. Now, the last player that I want to touch on before we wind things up is Elliot Himmelberg. For those frequenting big footy, lots of negativity about Elliot. I actually thought that he played a pretty good game. He was on Alir for most of the night. Alir didn't really have a lot of impact on the game. Really only had impact on the game when Elliot was in the ruck or off the ground having a rest. I felt like Himmelberg competed in the air pretty well, often against two opponents, and he's excellent at his feet. His hands are at ground level, and his ability to dish at ground level are very, very good. I didn't actually think it was a bad game from Elliot Himmelberg at all.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in 1990s camp. He said he's an almost player, and he says always will be, which is why he won't make it. I don't know whether he'll make it or not. He does, at his best, he plays a reasonably good game. At his worst, then he plays poorly. I didn't think his game was horrible on the weekend, and given the circumstances and the weather and all the rest of it, I didn't think it was a horrible game, but it wasn't outstanding. I do think Elliot's got to perhaps put his hand up a little bit more, Feen, or we'll see Frampton come back and have another crack.
Yes. I'd like to see him go well on a dry deck. Nick, what do you reckon? You're Mrs. Himmelberg.
I would like very much so if, and I said this earlier in the chat, if the umpires would actually treat Elliot like they used to when he was against Sydney, and all those holding frees were finally actually being paid against him, because that, I think, might have changed the consensus on Elliot's game a little bit. You're right. That's the reason why I like him, is that he's actually got quite a smart football brain. And there was an instance earlier, I think it was in the second quarter. Yeah, I think it was in the second quarter, where you had him leading forward and there was Tilthorpe who was coming across the side, and it was about centre-half forward. And of course, Alir has left Himmelberg, and Himmelberg's actually stopped. He didn't go up for the contest because he saw that Tilthorpe was going to fly. And to me, and this is where Tilthorpe is learning. He's only, how many, 2-3 games?
Are you going to bag Tilthorpe again when we're talking about Himmelberg?
No, I'm not. I'm conceding that he is kind of young, but that's, to me, that was the smart thing to do. He didn't go up. He stayed down. And we've seen Elliot do it before. When he's gone up and he's recognised he's not going to mark it, he'll do that little tap. And he knows where the other Adelaide forwards are, and he taps it to their advantage. And so in that instance, that would have been great, instead of Riley going for the mark because he's up against two of them, that he did that little tap backwards to Himmelberg, who's free, who could turn and dead straight in front of goals and had a shot. So that's the value that I like from Himmelberg that we don't get from Frampton. Now, Frampton's doing excellent in the SANFL because he's too good for the SANFL. But I don't think he's good enough for AFL. And I also think that Elliot does better around the ground as a ruck than what Frampton does. And I think that's why he'll stay in.
But given that we only ruck Himmelberg, we only take Rob off for 38 seconds a quarter, basically. So
I know, and we shouldn't.
We could ruck McHenry and get away with it, really.
True. There's an issue there with what we're doing in the ruck. I think.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about O'Brien in a sec, just to round off. But just to finish off on Himmelberg, Port showed us the value of being able to clunk a mark. Charlie took a couple, and Marshall took one, and there's a lot of value in clunking marks, and that's what we need from Elliot Himmelberg or Billy Frampton. I'm a bit of a Himmelberg fan. I jumped off him for a moment, and he came back and bit me on the arse late last season. But I want him to. He needs to regain that late season form from last year. But I don't think last night. I don't think Saturday night was a night for it. It was heavy ground, and they did double team him a lot of the time. It was quite surprising actually how often they would Cleary in particular would run off Tex, and again, that shows where Tex is at. Cleary would run off him and double team Himmelberg. So I still favour him over Frampton. I don't think Frampton's the answer, but if Elliot can't pick it up over the next month, then I'll be asking some questions again about whether he's the answer and whether we would be better off, as 9090 says in the chat, having a forward line that is two talls, Fogg and Riley, and having a lot of smalls around, which is kind of Richmond's setup with Revolt and Tommy Lynch.
This is my preferred setup, Feen. I totally agree with that, actually, because these guys aren't top quality. I know they'll persevere with them, but I do think we would be much more dangerous with. Unfortunately, we've got two smalls missing now for a while. So that's going to not allow that. But if all were available, I'd go down the path of what you're talking about, just the two talls.
Yeah, look, I'm sure they don't want to ruck Riley at the moment, and that's I don't want to see him really in the ruck for any stretch of time. But I don't know. I don't actually mind the current setup if everyone's playing their role, but at the moment they're not. So anyway, all right. One from each of you. That's one Macca, 1 ONE1 player that you think is under the pump at the moment.
Riley O'Brien, absolutely Riley O'Brien. And at the moment, he is a shadow of the player he was. I thought last year he was starting to fade a little bit, and this year he is gone. He's not what we thought he was going to be and what he should be. I don't know what the story is, but he's certainly letting us down. He's getting beaten for the knot, and he's not following up once the ball hits the ground as much or as often as he used to. So I'm very, very disappointed with him.
Nick?
Tex.
Yes, and if anyone has an opinion on who might be under the pump, those in the chat, speak now or forever hold your peace, because the podcast's got about 5 minutes left. Yeah, it's going to be a brave call when it happens, Nikki. Very brave call.
But it needs to.
I 100% agree. 100% agree.
We've had three games in a row.
Yep, 100% agree. Look, you guys both stole my thunder. I don't know what's wrong with Riley O'Brien at the moment. He's not jumping. He's not aggressive. He was actually going up one-handed too. I don't know whether you noticed in marking contests. Quite regularly, he was going up one-handed doing the techs, which I did not like at all. It seemed like he was intimidated by Lysette. It seemed like he was feeling for contact from Lysette the whole time. I didn't like O'Brien's game at all, and he's got to pick it up. Someone at Big Footy said bloated contract syndrome, and I reckon that's pretty right, because if he could do it last year, he could do it this year. So he's got to step it up. And I'm in full agreement with you on Tex, as we've already spoken about. The only other one, and not necessarily on performance as such, but I really don't want to see DMAC selected. Like, DMAC should be a break glass kind of player. We've got a couple of lads, like you've mentioned, O'Connor, and we've got Worrell, who's waiting in the wings. Jackson Haitley's back in the twos. Jackson wasn't performing terribly well, but 2 games isn't enough. And DMAC did a lot wrong on Saturday night. Did a few things right, but he did a lot wrong as well. So play him as a medical sub if you like, because it gives us a little bit of versatility if required. But I would hate to see him in the 22 for the rest of the year.
I would see DMAC as a perfect away medical sub, because that way you're not affecting any of the other lads playing in the SANFL. Thanks,
True Blue Footy. Saying good night. It's our pleasure, mate. Thanks for, I'm assuming it's mate. Could be a lady. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. All right, look, I think that might be kind of about it. What do you think? Any final thoughts from anybody?
Well, the only question is who will we pick next week to take the place of our 2 small forwards? And is this the week we might give Newchurch a run, or do we give a Pedlar a run, or something like that?
I don't think Newchurch is ready, and Pedlar's still coming back from injury.
Yeah, that's our problem. I think Newchurch will get somewhere. Earlier on the season, he was actually doing quite well. He's got a little bit quiet the last couple. He's still got, in the SNFL, from what I've seen, I'm quite pleased with his defensive run. But he has to be told to go in and tackle. He doesn't instinctively do that. Yeah. And so he needs to work on that. The game against Sturt was a classic. He was just trying to corral people instead of actually going at them and making the tackle. And Talia took him aside and had quite a few words, and then he actually started to tackle. So I think he is just that little bit away, but he might come in because we don't have a lot of other small forwards options at all.
What about Jones?
To bring in.
He
doesn't do well. He does not do well up forward. I've quite liked him off half back, and because he actually has to be involved in the play, and he has to stick closer to his man, whereas he gets lost at half forward, and we've seen that.
Yeah.
But he might have to.
We're going to have we're going to have two small forwards to replace. I'd be thinking, probably I think what they might do is bring Haitley and O'Connor in. I think Haitley and Schoenberg and O'Connor can probably roll through the forward line with some midfield minutes. But yeah, the cupboard's a little bit bare at the moment. Well, anyway, look. Go on, mate.
I think I was just going to say, I think you summed it up well there. Those two are obvious candidates, maybe Jones as well, and that's about it.
Yep. All right, look, thanks to everyone who's joined us. It's been a very lively chat on YouTube and Discord tonight. Thanks to 1990 Crow for jumping on. Don't forget, we're back again on Tuesday night with Pete to talk about Crows news, injury updates, and we'll be looking at Jason Horn in more depth as part of our SA Crowed to the Draft segment, which is possibly the worst name ever, but no one's come up with a better one. Don't forget, get around our Discord. And guys, if you can, like if you see a tweet or if you see something on YouTube or whatever, give it a share, give it a like. If you're listening on iTunes, give us a review. Really keen to try and grow the CrowCast community on Discord so that we get a lively chats like we did tonight. It's great to see. So tell your friends and get amongst it, and share and retweet as much as you can. Also, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you want to dish in a couple of bucks, go to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast. There's all my advertisements, Nikki and Macca. It's been a fun night, good chat. Thanks, both of you.
A pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Thanks to everyone. And come on, 1990. That's no good. Thanks to everyone, and we'll see you on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live at 8:30. Night all.
Night all.